We are going to make some almond-filled speculaas. This is my mom's recipe. She's the master at making almond-filled speculaas. I have had several family members urge me to make a video on her speculaas recipe, so I hope I can do it justice. We're going to start with 4 cups of ground almonds. You can buy your almonds ground, or you can use a food processor to grind up your almonds. Just make sure that they're the blanched almonds that don't have the dark shell on the crust on the outside, because you want this to be yellow. So this is going to be for the almond paste on the inside. So we have 4 cups of ground almonds. I have 3 cups of icing sugar. And I have 2 teaspoons of lemon juice. This is just the real lemon in the jug. You could do fresh as well. And I have 1.5 teaspoons of pure almond extract and 3 eggs. And we're just going to mix this up. You can mix it by hand. It just goes quicker by machine, and it mixes it really well. All right. Doesn't take long. All right. This is very sticky right now, so it makes it too difficult to work with. So ideally what we're going to do here is we're going to package this up. I'll show you how I do that. And we're going to put it in the fridge for a couple of days so that it becomes firm, so that when we're doing the filling inside the speculaas, we can actually slice it and lay it in, because it'll be easier to spread than when it's all sticky. So I'm just going to clean up my area here and show you how I package that. This paste is very sticky and very soft, so if you line a loaf pan with some parchment paper, it'll just help to keep it more into a block, because otherwise it's going to be so hard to try and create a block. And we're just going to wrap this up, and we're going to get it in the fridge overnight. So we're just going to wrap this up and put plastic wrap over it so it doesn't dry out. And then we'll get the speculaas ready tomorrow, and we will use this in the center layer. Do the speculaas part of the almond-filled speculaas. So I have 1 1/4 cups of butter. And I've softened that in the microwave for 30 seconds because I want that to cream together really well with the sugars. And I have 1.5 cups of brown sugar and 1.5 cups of white sugar. You can use yellow sugar as well, but I just happen to have brown sugar in the house. So I'm going to get these creaming together, because you want that all nice and creamed up. Oh, I guess I should plug in my mixer. And then we're going to cream that together nice. Usually it takes about a minute, because you want it to be nice and creamy. So I'll show you what that looks like after it's mixed for about 30 seconds to a minute. Alright, so I've got my butter and sugars creamed together. I'm going to add in 3 eggs. And a whole bunch of spices. So this is a combination of all the spices that you need for speculaas. So first off, I do have some baking soda, 1.5 teaspoons of baking soda. And then I have 1 teaspoon of cloves, 1 teaspoon of ginger, 1.5 teaspoons of cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of allspice, and 1.5 teaspoons of nutmeg. So those are all your traditional speculaas spices. And I'm going to just mix those together, cream them in. I'll need to scrape the side of my bowl because I was creaming the butter and sugar first, and I just want to make sure that it's getting all the way. I'll just scrape my sides. You're going to want this to mix well. And then we're going to add in the flour, which is 4.5 cups of flour. Don't start the mixer too fast because you don't want it to all poof up in your face with the flour. And you want this to all come together, so you don't want to have any flour left on the bottom of your mixer. And it will clean the side of the pan. It'll just all come together in a nice clump. And that is the Speculaas part. So that's all mixed together well. So I'm going to make some room on my counter and we're going to start assembling this. I divided my Speculaas in half, so I'm sure that I'm going to have 2 equal portions for the bottom and the top. And I'm going to try to get this pressed nice and thin into my cookie sheet. Once I've got most of it pressed in, I'm going to use my rolling pin as well to make it nice and smooth. So this is going to take a couple minutes here. I'm not going to video the whole time, but I will show you how that looks. So you just have to work at it because you're going to need this quite thin. All right, so that took a few minutes. If you put parchment paper down, then your rolling pin won't stick as much. So I'm going to get the next layer going here, but this is the first layer. All right, so I've pulled my almond paste out of the fridge, which I had wrapped up. Just to get it firmer, it's a bit easier to work with, and if you kind of slice it, and we're going to get this layered on here as thin as we can. You might not need all of it, but we're also going to do the same thing where we put the parchment paper down and roll it so that it gives a nice thin layer. It's just much easier to work with this once it's been in the fridge for overnight. So I'm just going to work at this. I'll show you what it looks like once I'm rolling it with a rolling pin. All right, so I've spread it about on top of the bottom layer of Speculaas. I'm just going to use my rolling pin again to try get this nice and thin. And I still have extra here that I can use to fill in all the little holes if I don't get it, if there's some little gaps in there. So just take your time doing this. This is going to take a few minutes to get this nice and smooth. I'm just filling in all the little gaps here so I can roll it again. I just want you to see that it's not always perfect the first time. So you just want to fill in where you don't have quite enough. And then you're going to roll it again with the parchment paper on top. Because you want to have this spread nice and thin throughout the whole thing and nice and even. All right, looking pretty close here. Getting sticky. If your parchment paper gets too sticky, go ahead and grab a new one. So I'm just a couple little holes yet. I'm using, you know what, I think I only have a tiny bit of my paste left over, so I think I'm going to just use it all. If you did have quite a bit left over, you can just freeze your extra almond paste and use it another time. But I think just because I only have a little bit left here, I'm just going to use it all. All right, it's going to be hard to get the second layer of this Speculaas on top of the almond paste without messing anything up. So I'm going to first try roll as much of it as I can between a couple layers of parchment paper before I put it on and do my final stretch on there to fit the cookie sheet. And this is my 12 by 17 by 1 inch cookie sheet or jelly roll pan. So I'm just going to work at this before I try and transfer this on top. All right, so I've rolled most of this out on separate parchment paper so that I can transfer that onto here. And I have some extras to fill in my sides because my parchment paper is not quite big enough. So I'm going to fill in my sides and then I'm going to put the parchment on top and gently roll. You don't want to roll too hard because you don't want to have any of that almond paste squeezing out. So this is all taking a little bit of time, but it's very much worth it with the end product. All right, so we've got this in our pan. It's a lot of work. It's going to be a greater appreciation when Grandma gives you girls your Speculaas. That's almond-filled Speculaas. One little last touch. If you put a little bit of milk on the top and spread that with your fingers before you bake it, this gives it a very nice finish on the top of your Speculaas. It's almost a bit of a shine, and it just has a really nice finish on the top of your Speculaas. So we're just going to put a little bit of milk on there, and we're going to bake this in the oven. 350 degrees. The recipe says 30 minutes. I have a feeling we're going to need a little bit longer, but we're going to check that out at the 30-minute mark because you want to make sure that this is baked all the way through. You don't want to waste all that time and have it slightly underbaked. So we're going to get this in the oven. I might just pull off a little bit of my excess of my milk. I don't want too much sitting on top because you just want a little glaze on the top of your speculaas. So I'm just going to pull off this little bit of excess before I put it in the oven. This is my mom. 27 years ago, she baked all the pastries for my wedding. If you ask her now, she'll say she's not a great baker, but I think I learned from the best. I'm at the 30-minute mark. It's looking beautiful, but if I touch it, it's still a little soft. I think I'm going to give it some more time because I want to make sure that's baked all the way through. All right, my oven is a bit on the cooler side. I've had to have this in for about 40 minutes. So just make sure you keep checking it. You want to make sure that it is cooked all the way, baked all the way through. And once it's sat on the counter for a few minutes, 3-4 minutes, that's when you want to cut it right away so that you can get nice cuts in it. And once it's all cut, let it cool completely before you take it out of the pan. So I have my recipe there, and give it a try. It's a lot of work, but very much worth it. Oh, I just wanted you to hear that nice crunch on the top that you get with that little bit of milk. Nice crust on the top. So get it all cut up, let it cool.